Section 7 of New Discoveries at Jamestown. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This recording is by Mark Smith of Simpsonville, South Carolina. New Discoveries at Jamestown by John L. Connor and J. Paul Hudson. Section 7. Travel. During the 17th century, travel in Virginia was mainly by boat. As the roads leading from Jamestown to the nearby settlements were usually in deplorable condition, especially after heavy rains, the settlers preferred to travel by water whenever possible. As the colony grew and roads were improved somewhat, travel by horse became more common, especially for short trips. After 1650, the use of wagons increased, and records indicate that a few of the more prosperous planters imported fine carriages from England. Boats and ships. Boats used by the settlers varied in size from small, flat-bottomed boats to fairly large sailing vessels, and included such types as small rowboats, pinnaces, barks, bilanders, schooners, ketches, and sloops. Living on a river, and in a tidewater area of innumerable creeks, bays, and rivers, practically all of the colonists were familiar with handling boats of one type or another. However, only a few objects relating to boats and ships have been unearthed at Jamestown: small anchors, chains, oarlocks, ship's bolts and spikes, and tools used by shipwrights and ship's carpenters. Illustration caption: some bits and bridle ornaments in the Jamestown collection. The artistic designs on many bridle bosses are symbolic of beautiful handiwork performed by craftsmen of a bygone day. End of caption. Horses, wagons, and carriages. The first English-built road in America, in use by 1608, ran 1 mile from Jamestown Island to Glasshouse Point. Later, as the colony grew, the road was extended to Governor Berkeley's plantation, about 4 miles from Jamestown, and other nearby settlements. There is some evidence that it was known as the Old Road or Great Road. Illustration caption: 17th century spur and stirrup excavated at Jamestown. End of caption. Illustration caption: this branding iron was used by one of the colonists during the early days of the settlement. End of caption. As early as 1609, 6 mares and 2 horses were brought to Jamestown. In 1611, 17 horses and mares arrived, and in 1614, Captain Samuel Argall brought several more. 6 years later, in 1620, 20 horses were shipped from England. It is most surprising, therefore, that the census of 1625 recorded only 1 horse for the entire colony. By 1649, however, it was estimated that there were 300 horses in Virginia, and most of the successful farmers and wealthy planters owned them after 1650. During the following years, the number of horses increased greatly. Many well-preserved metal objects relating to horse equipment and riding gear have been unearthed. Bits and bridle ornaments. Most bits are of the snaffle variety, although a few curb bits have been recovered. In those days, many bits had brass bosses attached to their cheek bars, and many of these attractive ornaments have been unearthed. Some bosses are decorated with raised designs, while others are plain. The majority are made of brass, although a few iron bosses have been excavated. Spurs and stirrups. A few complete spurs have been excavated. While the majority are plain iron, some brass spurs in the collection are decorated with very attractive incised or embossed designs. 2 or 3 of the highly decorated brass spurs are probably of Spanish origin. One of them, in excellent condition, was found near an early brick kiln. Illustration caption: wrought iron horseshoes and currycombs used prior to 1650. End of caption. Illustration caption: settlers trading with the Indians, bartering casting counters and other trade goods for furs. Conjectural sketch by Sidney E. King. End of caption. All stirrups unearthed are made of wrought iron. Some of the steps or stirrup bars are solid, while others have a single slot. Horseshoes and currycombs. Horseshoes found vary considerably in size, although the majority are relatively small. Many shoes have both toe and heel caulks, and in most examples the caulks are well worn. The many small shoes that have been excavated may indicate that the horses used in Virginia 3 centuries ago were much smaller than the 20th century breeds. All currycombs found are hand-wrought, and many have pleasing designs on the backs, formed by the curved iron strips which extend from the handle prong to the back of the comb. Branding irons. Parts of several branding irons were found, including a complete example with initials TR. Wagon and carriage parts. Archaeologists unearthed only a few metal parts from wagons and carriages, reminders of a day when horses and oxen were indispensable animals in the Virginia settlements. Trade. Some interesting objects recovered at Jamestown relate to early trade. These include items used in trade with the Indians, as well as an excellent assortment of lead bale clips. These clips are decorated discs which are often attached to bales of goods, especially woolen cloth, imported from England. One object, the heaviest unearthed at Jamestown, relates indirectly to trade. It is a 1,300-pound iron pile driver which was once used to build wharfs and piers. Indian trade. One reason why the colonists selected a site for Jamestown some miles up the James River was to develop the Indian trade over an extensive area. During the early years of the colony, trade with the natives was encouraged. It is clear from the early records that the settlers bartered such items as beads, cloth, penny knives, shears, bells, glass toys, whistles, hatchets, pots and pans, brass casting counters, and similar objects in exchange for Indian corn and other vegetables, fish, game, fruits and berries, and furs. Many examples of English trade goods used for bartering with the Indians have been found on the island, but these can be described only briefly. Beads. The majority of glass beads were shipped from England, although some may have been made in Italy, probably in Venice. As no glass beads were found at or near the site of the glass factory, it is doubtful whether any were made there. Most beads in the collection are round or oval. A few are cylindrical, having been cut from colored glass rods. All beads excavated are of one or more colors, with the exception of 2 or 3 that are colorless. After 3 centuries, the attractive colors still persist, and looking at the colorful beads today, you can understand the charm they held for the Indians. Knives. Small, inexpensive knives called penny knives were often used for trading purposes during the years at Jamestown. A few folding knives and blade fragments, which may also have been penny knives, have been recovered. Shears. Several shears and scissors, highly prized by the Indians, were found on the island. A few are almost complete. Bells. Brass and iron bells of types which were used for bartering with the Indians have been excavated. A few days after the colonists reached Jamestown, one of them recorded that, quote, "Our captain presented to an Indian chief gifts of divers sorts, as penny knives, shears, bells, beads, glass toys, etc., more amply than before." End of quote. Illustration caption. Brass casting counters excavated on Jamestown Island. Many were made in Germany before 1575 for use by merchants on counting boards. In the New World they were used for the Indian trade. End of caption. Illustration caption. A few objects unearthed at Jamestown which were used for trading with the Indians. Shown are glass beads, scissors, iron knives, a hatchet, and bell fragments. End of caption. Hatchets. Many fine specimens of hand-wrought hatchets have been found. These were valuable items during the early years of the settlement, and much sought after by the Indians, so that a large number were used in trading with them. but hatchets were used primarily by the carpenter, cooper, and other artisans. Pots and pans. A pot or pan made of brass or copper was almost worth its weight in gold for trading purposes. A few complete examples, together with numerous fragments, have been recovered. Brass casting counters or jetons. Most of these thin brass tokens or counters, similar in appearance to coins, were made in Germany during the second half of the 16th century. In Europe they were used on counting boards for making mathematical calculations, but in the New World it is believed that they were used in the Indian trade. Approximately a dozen have been found at Jamestown. 3 were also found on Roanoke Island, site of Raleigh's ill-fated Lost Colony, and 1 was recovered in an Indian shell mound near Cape Hatteras, not too distant from Croatan Island, known today as Ocracoke Island. Many of the counters in the Jamestown collection were made by Hans Schultes and Hans Laufer of Nuremberg, who manufactured such jetons between 1550 and 1574, at which time Nuremberg was a center for the making of casting counters. Some of the counters have holes punched through them, indicating that the Indians may have worn them around their necks like pendants, suspended from leather thongs. Miscellaneous items. Other objects which the English used in trade with the Indians were colored cloth, glass toys, and whistles, but no examples of these have been recovered during archaeological explorations. Illustration caption. A wharf scene. Arrival of a ship from the mother country. Conjectural sketch by Sidney E. King. English and foreign trade. During the 17th century, active trade was carried on between the Virginia colony and the mother country. Local commodities of timber, wood products, soap ashes, iron ore, tobacco, pitch, tar, furs, minerals, salt, sassafras, and other New World raw materials were shipped to England. In exchange, English merchants sold to the colonists tools, farm implements, seeds, stock and poultry, furniture and household accessories, clothing, weapons, hardware, kitchen utensils, pottery, metalware, glassware, and certain foods and drinks. There is also good evidence that some trade was carried on with Holland, Germany, Italy, Spain, Portugal, France, Mexico, and the West Indies. Many artifacts unearthed, especially pottery, were made in the countries mentioned. It is believed that certain commodities were acquired by direct trade with the country where made, in spite of the strict laws by which the colonial powers sought to monopolize the colonial trade for the benefit of the mother country. Lead bale clips. A series of decorated lead clips which relate to 17th century trade have been found at several places on Jamestown Island. As their name implies, these lead clips or seals were attached to bales of English goods, usually woolen cloth, to attest that the goods were of an approved quality and length and of a given amount. Each clip usually consisted of 2 discs connected by a narrow band, and when used for marking cloth, the name or initials of the maker of the material was often incised on one of the discs. The clips, too, were often embossed with a decorative device, such as a coat of arms, crest, crown, name or initials of a king, numerals, king's head, royal arms, animal, or flower. Over a dozen of these small lead clips have been unearthed, and serve as reminders of a past day when majestic English merchantmen sailed to Jamestown laden with bales of goods from the mother country. Illustration caption. Lead bale clips used for sealing bales of woolen cloth and other goods. Once a clip had been attached to a bale, it attested that the goods were of an approved quality and length or amount. End of caption. Illustration caption. This 1,300-pound iron pile driver, used for driving piles in the building of small wharves, was found at Jamestown. End of caption. Illustration caption. Building a wharf about 1650. Conjectural sketch by Sidney E. King. End of caption. Piers and wharfs. In order to accommodate such large sailing vessels, piers and wharfs had to be built at Jamestown. A 1,300-pound iron pile-driver was found in the basement of a 17th-century building in 1955. It was probably used 3 centuries ago for driving piles in the James River during construction of a small wharf. Worshipping. The Jamestown colonists were, for the most part, religious and God-fearing people. The majority were members of the Church of England. One of the first settlers, the Reverend Robert Hunt, was an ordained minister of that church. Whenever possible, services were held every morning and evening, and sermons delivered twice on Sundays. A few ornamental brass book clasps excavated near Jamestown may have been used on early Bibles and prayer books. Under the care of Bruton Parish Episcopal Church in Williamsburg are 4 pieces of communion silver which were used in the church at Jamestown. 2 pieces, an exquisite chalice and paten, were donated to the Jamestown church by Lieutenant Governor Francis Morrison, or Morrison, in 1661. Inscribed on both is the legend, quote, "Mixed not holy things with profane." End quote. A second paten, made in London in 1691-92, was given to the Jamestown church by Governor Edmund Andros in 1694. Another paten, or a collection plate, also made in London, bears the inscription, quote, "For the use of James City Parish Church." End quote. Illustration caption: decorated brass book clasp found near Jamestown, which may have been used on an early Bible or prayer book. End of caption. The officials of the Virginia Company of London, admonishing the first settlers to serve and fear God in order to plant a successful and prosperous colony, advised, "Lastly and chiefly, the way to prosper and achieve good success is to make yourselves all of one mind for the good of your country and your own, and to serve and fear God, the giver of all goodness. For every plantation which our Heavenly Father hath not planted shall be rooted out." Seemingly the advice was carried out, for from the small settlement on a tiny island in the James River grew a great and mighty nation. Illustration caption: communion silver used in the Jamestown church after 1661. Both the chalice and paten were made in London, and donated to the church by Lieutenant Governor Francis Morrison, or Morrison, in 1661. On both pieces is the legend, "Mixed not holy things with profane." End of caption. End of book.